Housing Authority. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Bingle.
Here.
Commissioner Blackman. Commissioner Copeland.
Here.
Commissioner Outlaw.
Here.
Commissioner Powell.
Present.
Commissioner Reddick.
Here.
Commissioner Scott.
Here.
We have a forum.
We have public comments today from Mr. Jeff, First Citizen.
That makes
Yes, you.
Is this good?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
I don't want to be at the risk of being repetitive. I don't want to cover ground that you guys already know, but I think it's helpful to kind of how I got an invitation. And you know, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Jeff Medlin. I work at First Citizens Bank here in Leyburn. I've been with First Citizens about 19 years, and for about the past 10 or 12 years, I've been one of the bankers that's been taking care of the relationship with the new housing authority. Certainly wouldn't take credit for all of it because a lot of people, takes a lot of people to do the work to support a relationship, but I've been one of the primary or the lead bankers. And we appreciate that relationship and certainly thank the Housing Authority for their business. I was approached a few months ago with a very specific question. That question was, and these are my words, not the question that was asked of me, but hey, we have a lot of money in your bank, and at present, it's not working as hard as it might otherwise. Is that a conversation that we can begin? And sort of that started the process. And I provided the board what I referred to as three different options, sort of what I call good, better, and best. And again, at the risk of being repetitive, the good option was keeping things as is. What we've done historically with the Housing Authority, understanding that the funds have to be maintained separately based on purpose and use. What we did was apply what's called an internal rate of return or an earnings credit that was designed to eliminate or reduce, hopefully to zero, the anticipated service charges. I mean, because the Housing Authority, because of all their accounts and the activity and the different things, the Housing Authority uses roughly $1,000 to $1,200 a month of service charges combined across the accounts. Our goal with that strategy was to have an internal rate of return that would offset that. You can't hit it at zero every month, but the goal was to get as close to zero as we could every month. And that's a good strategy, what I'd call more of an all-weather strategy. But in fairness to the question that was posed, it's not a good strategy in a higher rate environment, which we've been in the past 12, 18 months or so. So the second option, what I'll consider a better approach, would be for the Housing Authority, with board's permission, is to effectively start paying an interest rate on all the interest-bearing accounts that the Housing Authority has with us. That would be on all the checking accounts, what are in our world called business checking with interest. And we would actually pay an interest rate on those accounts. Something to note is that the Housing Authority funds are held as public funds, meaning that there are special designations for those funds, and I'll go into any questions around that if there are any. But the money market rate we can pay, or the interest rate we can pay on the checking accounts, would be 1.5% on your balances. We would then deduct those service charges from that interest. And in round numbers, by my estimate, it was going to generate an additional $48,000 to $54,000 for the Housing Authority. So again, better than when we currently are. We would guarantee that rate for up to, or at least 6 months. If at the end of 6 months, the rate market is pretty much comparable to what it is now, I would anticipate we would renew it for another 6. The third option was what I would refer to as the best strategy. And that one builds on better by assigning an interest rate or paying an interest rate on the funds that are held in those accounts as for transactional purposes. But then it would lean on the board and then specifically the finance piece to determine, hey, of those funds that are sitting in these accounts, how much do we need to hold for our day-to-day operations, whether it's a 2-month, 3-month window, and what funds could we possibly do something else with? Certainly keeping in mind that these are public funds and that there's certain things you can do with them. Your investment policies only will allow for certain things. But then take those funds that would be deemed excess and look at a strategy with our institutional advisory services group. And that's where Ken Whitehurst, who's with us, comes in. Ken's going to explain at a high level sort of some ideas for putting those funds to work so they work a little bit harder for you. So let's set it up, Ken.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks. If y'all don't mind, pass these around. I'm not going to go through this entire presentation for the sake of time, but I'll hit the highlights as it relates to the specific idea that
Jeff, before we get in this, can I just ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
Can you mix the two? So on our operational funds that we would think that 2 to 3 month or 2 months thing where we could get the 1.5% on that money, can you mix the two options?
Yes, what we would do is actually any funds that was not deemed excess, we absolutely would move the interest rate on all those accounts.
I think we're going to do that regardless of.
Well, that's a board call, but I would assume, it's dangerous, but I would assume we would move from good to better. The question then becomes is, okay, how do we sort of layer in the best piece? But yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and so it relates to the best page. I'm going to start on slide 8. What's on the previous slides is a little bit about, which I'll describe real quickly, is about Park Citizens overall, and specifically Park Citizens Institutional wealth. And I'm a part of an organization that's a part of a broader wealth management organization, which we work with both individuals as well as business owners, municipalities, organizations to help with strategies related to earning more money or higher interest or a better return on monies. In this case, we're primarily obviously talking about excess capacity or excess funds. And so a specific strategy that we offer through institutional trust that a lot of you, we're actually working with a lot of North Carolina municipalities on today and having very similar conversation is, okay, I've got some excess money. I've got money in a checking account. I've got money in a savings account or a money market account, but I've got more money on top of that. And so if that's in fact the case in this current interest rate environment, is there anything else that you can do that would still provide me the safety and security that I need and I want? But at the same time, in essence, providing a better rate of return. So we have some fixed income strategies before I get into the strategy itself, kind of give you a real quick backdrop into why this strategy is a relevant opportunity for organizations today. So if you look at slide 9, you can see the Fed funds interest rate. And so over the last several quarters, months, over the last couple of years, the interest rate, as you all know, has been very, very aggressive at raising interest rates with the idea of taming inflation and trying to bring inflation back under control. We feel like at this point that the Fed, at least for this cycle anyway, is pretty much done with the interest rate hikes. Not to say that there won't be another quarter basis point or so. And of course, the Fed can do what they feel like they need to, but our opinion is we're pretty much done. We're pretty much at the top of that cycle. And so when you start thinking about what Jeff talked about, whether that's a checking account, which generally pays very low interest anyway, or money market accounts, which pay a better interest rate than checking accounts in a higher interest rate environment. Once the Fed starts lowering interest rates, then those money market account interest rates are going to start going back down too. So this strategy, in essence, supplements that by allowing you to maintain a higher interest rate for a longer period of time. And so when you look at the next slide, which is slide 10, this shows you a comparison of the 3 different things or 3 different opportunities or vehicles that we use and so to determine the interest rates. And so if you look at that, there's 3 lines. The blue line represents back from 2015 through 2021 the Fed interest rate. And so you can see up, back down, and obviously over the last couple of years from the previous slide, it's gone back up significantly. So there's pretty significant swings up and down as far as the Fed interest rate is concerned. When you look at the gray line, you can see that the gray line, while not exactly what the Fed fund line does, it's very similar. It very much mirrors what that is. That represents money market accounts. A lot of municipalities use what's called the North Carolina Capital Management Trust account as well, which is a great solution. It works just like a money market account as far as the return on those interest rates are concerned. What we use as far as this fixed income is concerned is a ladder bond strategy, which is represented by the red line. And so, in essence, what we do is invest in U.S. Treasuries. And so, to the piece of safety and security, you're investing in U.S. Treasuries. And so, it's not the same thing as FDIC, but the FDIC obviously deposit insurance for banks. But in essence, you're investing in the U.S. government. And so, as long as the U.S. government does not default on their obligations, then we can't say no risk. But there's very, very little risk involved in investing in treasuries. That is actually why 15930, the North Carolina Statute 15930, allows this as a strategy, allows municipalities, for an example, to invest in treasury securities. And so that kind of addresses the safety and soundness of this and why this is an acceptable alternative. So in essence, if you flip to the next slide, I can explain to you exactly how the strategy works. And this is just representative of an example of a portfolio. But in essence, right now, the yield on this 1-year strategy is 5.34. Okay, so in essence, the way this works is you're going to have monthly maturities. But we actually normally do quarterly maturities or can do quarterly maturities as well. And so there's two benefits of the ladder strategy. One is every quarter, if we use a quarter strategy, or every month in this scenario, 1/12 or in the case of a quarter, 25% of those monies that you invested comes up and matures. And so you can put it right back in your checking account. If you need the funds, you can put it right back in the checking account. You got access to it. If you don't need it, you can just put it right back into the investment and keep going. And so there's some built-in liquidity to it, which is an important part of the strategy. The other important part of the strategy, and why this, as Jeff described it as the best alternative, is that in a decreasing interest rate environment, you're going to be able to, as I said earlier, maintain a higher interest rate for a longer period of time. And so as these maturities come up and we start getting a better picture of the Fed's moves and when they're going to start lowering interest rates, we can extend the maturity or extend the duration of the investments in the portfolio so that they won't go down as fast as they would in the market. So those are really the two benefits: built-in liquidity, and then second of all, allow us to adjust and be proactive to interest rate changes as we go forward. And we feel like this is a great opportunity to take advantage of this now, once again, because we feel like the Fed, the next thing the Fed is going to do is pause, and then from there, likely lower interest rate. And so as a result, from a money market perspective, likely what you'll see from now is interest rates begin to go down. And so this is, again, a supplemental strategy on top of that. This is not to take all the money you have and put it in this strategy. But it's a supplemental strategy to, if you do in fact determine as a board that you have excess funds, then certainly this would be a great opportunity to maximize the return on those funds while they're being idle and not being used. So that's a very high level. I got a little bit technical in there as well, but let me stop and see what questions that you might have about how the strategy works or why it might be a good option. Yes, sir.
Question, and I'm the new guy, so I'm gonna have lots of questions, although, I've got some training experience in finance. We've got what, $4 million or something sitting in here. What are the cash flow variations and draws here where we need to use that cash?
So that's one of the things, and that's the intent of having this discussion. So the next analysis for us, Commissioner, is to go back and look at what is that monthly operating need, because the other piece to this equation is we're also getting subsidy every month coming from either tenants or the residents. And so as we go into a new fiscal year, one of the things that we're going to do is assess what that need is and then be able to come back to the board to say, based on that assessment, here's what we need on a monthly basis. And then you all can then, you know, with the help of First Citizens, then we can make a better determination on this is sitting idle. So let's just say hypothetically, you know, as you said, we got $4 million sitting in the bank. And let's just say hypothetically, 3.5 million is really what's going to sit idle for a period of time. And we don't really need from a monthly operational standpoint. Then that way we can sit down and come back and have that discussion around that $3.5 million number.
So we got that on the sort of short-term operating budget basis. Now, all of this, do we have a separate capital account or is all this together? And, you know, so there's two questions. There's sort of the month-to-month draw, and then it's sort of, okay, FEMA comes in, we get some cash. We're going to spend a lot of money redoing Trent Court. That draw comes out of this same account if we do that, or we're going to have other cash coming in, or?
No, the FEMA money would be set up in a separate account.
Separate account.
So it would not even, for lack of a better word, it wouldn't be commingled at all.
We're not going to commingle and cross-subsidize with this cash. This cash balance exists just for, it's our safety net.
Sure. And also keep in mind, each one of the funding sources, whether it's Trent Court or it's the towers, each one of those have a separate account related to that particular development. Right. So one of the things that we would be doing with the bank, and Jeff and I had this discussion when we started looking at this, is there may be a threshold amount from an investment standpoint that we may have to meet. So only at that point where we may join 100,000 from Trent Court and 100,000 from the tower that goes in there, but otherwise it's still separated from an accounting standpoint, but from the investment standpoint, it's going in that pool together. But otherwise, when it comes back, then we'll make a determination. If we earn $100,000 in interest on that, then it's split 50-50 between those two programs.
Next question. I'm sorry to ask so many, but if this cash is sitting here and if there's not going to be, you know, significant draw needs anticipated on a large chunk of it, what are we limited? This may be a question for Jamie. What are we limited to statutorily in terms of how we invest that? For instance, I mean, I'm a trustee of Elizabeth City State University. We have an endowment invested with UNC endowments. We get a lot more return than you'd get on a money market or the equivalent. Are we barred from doing that here?
Yes,
we are.
Yeah, so HUD is a little different. I hate to say that, but I like to say that. HUD is a little different, and we have some very strict stipulations on what HUD will allow you to invest those monies in. And that's why we're having this discussion, because this is probably the better and best opportunities we have. You're right. As we look at other opportunities.
Dollar cost average.
Yeah. Now, if we, so one of the other housing authorities, one of the other housing authorities I consult with, they have a scholarship that's in a foundation fund that they set up a foundation and they raise money for those funds to go in there. That's a little different because it's non-governmental funds, but the government funds we have to manage in a particular way.
Specifically, state statute 15930 governs the how the government can invest excess funds. And as far as what market is concerned, treasuries is it's not risky, but it's the riskiest that you could go. We're talking about money market accounts and CDs and those type of things. But again, we've got a lot of experience. First Citizens does working with organizations, which is why I can tell you for sure, you know, that yes, 15930 applies, and why this is the most aggressive investment option that there is. But even it's not aggressive.
Mr. Chair, so if you look at General Statute Section 159-30, that has a list of available investment vehicles, and they're all very conservative, obviously. But Jim, if you're also interested, or commissioners, others, 159-31 is also important to you. I'll point out, Ken and Jeff, that this discussion really started over bank safety and whether or not our money, which is not covered by FDIC insurance, is at risk. 15930 and 159-31 both do the job of addressing that issue. And FCB, you may want to explain the collateralization and the risk that an entity, any public fund takes in having all of this money or more money in a bank than that's covered by FDIC insurance. And I think that all relates back to the type of investment vehicle that's allowed. So
at a high level, any entity where these are designated as public funds, i.e., they're taxpayer dollars, probably for lack of a better description. Housing, cities, counties, any municipal or quasi-municipal entity sort of falls under that umbrella, and they are afforded the same FDIC coverage as we all are. But the cap there is $250,000 per taxpayer. Now, there are some ways to extend that to more than 250, and I'm not going to bore y'all with that. The FDIC does a very good job of sort of laying those scenarios out. But for municipal entities or public funds, the statute says, okay, banks, if you're going to do business with these entities, you have to do what's called collateralize, dollar for dollar. So every nickel above $250,000, we are required to hold a short-term government treasury in reserve to offset those dollars. So in round numbers, the number, I pulled a report this morning for the housing authority is about 5 million. So there's the first 250 is covered by FDIC. The remaining 4,750,000 and some change is dollar for dollar collateralized by a short-term U.S. Treasury security. So that's what you're referring to.
yes, sir.
So yeah. And so, I mean, if you think about it, your dollars are collateralized by that anyway. So it's not a big leap to, because that's the safety and protection that you're currently being afforded. Okay, just an editorial comment.
And the biggest intent for the good of the board, to continue, I know I'm coming on the back end, but experience with this and having further discussions with Jeff, as it relates to it. The bottom line of it is we got money sitting there that's not earning anything.
Yep.
So if at the end of the day, we can potentially earn somewhere between $70,000 and $80,000 a year, and by having our money just sit there, and that affords us. So let's go back to what we talked about. If you decide you want to create a foundation to give scholarships for young people that live in the communities, it's excess funds that you can be able to do some of those things with. So it gives you an opportunity to, it's not direct government funds, but it's earning interest, and it gives you some flexibility that you all as a board can then choose to look at some other ways that are still within the purpose of what we are founded to do, but it still gives you some opportunity.
So from a HUD financial, accounting portion, we could almost set up a separate line item for all of that interest or excess funds to come into that we would be allowed to direct, and not necessarily through HUD, correct?
No.
Okay.
Any interest earned on HUD money has to be reallocated back to the original HUD purpose. Any interest that's earned on non-HUD money, you can put into your scholarship fund or into whatever.
So this would be considered all HUD money.
Yeah, no, it's not. And that's what we're sharing, is that when we look at the total portfolio,
You'll have that all directed out.
correct. And that's what we're focused on, is looking at that, but then it also gives you, and I don't want to go into other things, but we're talking to Zeb about, the redevelopment agency
Correct.
and those kinds of things for housing purposes. So as we begin to look at those type of things, we have some opportunity, as long as we're still keeping to the mission of what the housing authority is about. The bottom line of it is we don't see any value in $4.5 million, $5 million sitting in the bank and you're not earning any interest on it. And that's really ultimately, Mr. Chair, what this is really all about. And so we wanted more information, because y'all had started this conversation before I came on. Jeff and I had further conversation around the better and best. I like those. I'm used to those. And so that's why we wanted to be able to come back to you all and provide more detailed information in this session. And as Jim indicated, now the job is, if it's something you're interested in that I can continue on, then what we'll do internally with Julianne and I is go look at all of those line items, look at those fundings, look at our operations of what we need, and then at the next month's meeting, come back and say, if it's $5 million there, we need 500,000. So really that 4.5 million is what we can have some flexibility with. Because keep in mind, money is going in and money is going out. Yeah, okay. So each month, while we got monies there, we're still drawing subsidy in from each of the programs, as well as capital funds, operating funds, and those things. So it varies of what we need and how much we need. Okay.
So this would then, the action step on this would to be come back in January. Well, we're in December. I mean, we'll have a meeting in December, or January to come back. January. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll come back in January. Okay. And present something to you all on what that day-to-day or monthly cash needs are, and then we can have some further discussions from there.
Okay.
At this time, any more questions for the bankers?
Good job.
Okay. Thank y'all.
Thank you all for your time.
Appreciate it.
There we go.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
I meant to do something at the beginning.
Yes, sir.
Can we amend the agenda a little bit on, we have finance under 6 and executive director 7. Can we amend that to have the executive director first and then we'll do finance after that? And the reason why is we have a recommendation for the approval of the fee accountant that I'll talk about in a minute, but he is available from 4:30 to 5. So I want to make sure that we get, I can present it, but then also if y'all have questions and let him explain their firm and things as well.
So you need a motion in that effect. So made.
Second.
All in favor of the adjustment to the agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
On yet? No. Okay. All right. So when he's supposed to come on at 4:30, but in the interim of that, what I like to, he's got to 5. This is not going to take long. Pam, come on in. So we have had some discussion around residents concerned with commissioners regarding excess utility charges, of how tenants get charged for excess utilities and those kinds of things. We have addressed that. And Commissioner Bingo, appreciate the referral. We brought the tenant in or tenants in. We've had discussions with them. They're comfortable with our explanation, even to the tune that once they got comfortable with that explanation, they went back and got all of the funding that they need from churches and other people in the community to help bring their accounts current. So they were comfortable and they understood it. But we thought it was important because you all as commissioners get the calls from people in the community. And so we thought we'd do a quick tutorial for you on how the excess utilities are determined and then how they're charged. So at least you all as board members are aware when you get those kind of phone calls, okay? So Pam, I'm gonna turn that over to you and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to all. Nice to meet you. Okay, so the first page that's up here now, that's the it's telling you the rates. The gas rate is 1.25, and the kilowatts is 0.100004. So scroll to the next page.
No, is that our cost?
That's the kilowatts. How much? Yes, that's our cost.
The housing authorities cost.
The housing. Okay. Yes. So we had a consumption done by New Rod, the New Rod company. They did updated our consumption. So for a 1-bedroom is $215. For a 2-bedroom is $261. For a 3-bedroom is $318. Okay, and then to go to the bottom, stay on that page right there for 1 second, okay? Go to the bottom where you see the summer. The summer is from May to September, and then from for winter is October to April.
Okay, question. So these are
what they are allotted, those numbers that you
Right.
just gave us, okay, just make it clear.
Yep.
But they are, this is what our tenants are allotted.
Okay, so go to the next page, and I think this right here was sum it up. So with this tenant, I kind of redacted it, so the information of the resident name wouldn't be up
It's
there.
coming.
This,
It's coming.
the meters were ran, 9/25. They consumed, 1,064. That's a 2-bedroom unit, so when you subtract the 261 from the 1064, then it's time the 0.10004, which made it 80/30. So like I said, to the bottom, the meters were read on 9/25 and the billing date is 11/1.
So kind of go back just for, to share with you all. Do you go back to the utility chart, that you, so, no.
That one.
So as Pam indicated, just for the benefit of the board, we're required by HUD on an annual or biannual basis to have a third-party consulting firm that specializes in this to do the utility consumption adjustment. So it's not something we come up with. There's a whole engineering calculation formula that they use to be able to do that. And they come up with the formula that we utilize. Now, go to the next. Okay, you can admit it. Okay. Yeah. All right, so as Pam indicated, just where you all know, so we go out as staff, because these are master meter, and what that basically means is they're not individual meter, they're master meter. So we pay one bill, and then we have individual meters at each of the units. So we read those meters. So as Pam said, their consumption for that month was 1064, which then generates, as she gave you the calculation. So their excess utility for that time period is $80.30 based on that formula, okay? Now, go on down. I think this is also important to know, because this is one of the biggest also calls that y'all will get. The tenant will call and say, I'm getting billed on 11/1, okay?
Right.
And the last 10 days for their mind, or the last 15 days in their mind, it's been hot. So I hadn't used any heat. Okay, so they're arguing, and their point is valid. They've not used a lot of heat in the last 15 days. However, we have to do a billing in arrears. Okay, so we read the meter on 9/25, and now we're billing them on 11/1. So they're thinking, as Duke Power came, because it's an electronic system and it's more up to date, they're thinking, oh, well, like Duke Power does, it cuts off at the 25th of October, and I'm getting billed for November 1st. That's not the case with the Housing Authority, okay? So I think that's why we wanted you all to understand that from that billing cycle standpoint, we're actually sending them a bill on 11/1 for a meter that was read on 9/25, which is 30 days back. So that's from August all the way, from the end of August 26th to September 25th. You see what I'm saying? So if they use that air during that period of time, reverse of the heat and the hot, but if they use that air during that period of time and they ran their utilities, and then they're saying, oh, well, it's been cool, I hadn't ran my air condition, and so I kind of cut it off. Well, when we get to January, because of the 10/25 meter reading, their January bill is going to be a lot cheaper but you're thinking if it's cold, their January bill should be higher. But because we did a meter reading on 10/25, then now you can better understand that delay. So when they're calling you all, we want to make sure that y'all understand the whys of everything.
So could you go back up a minute? Let me look at that chart. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
The other page. Right there.
Okay. So that's 261 kilowatt hours for that 2-bedroom. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
What's included.
That's what's included. That's what they get an allowance for. So anything over that is charged to them.
That's a chunk of kilowatt hours, the difference.
It really is. And so,
I mean, there is anybody check to see what the anomaly consumption is? Is it a bad heat pump? Is it the hot water heater is running 24 hours a day? What?
They're not insulated first of all.
right. And that's
Something's wacky.
it is. And so
5 times the
problem, and I'll share it to you, and I think y'all heard me say this at one of the first meetings. If you HUD prior to 1994 viewed air conditioning in public housing as an amenity, keep in mind, these units were built in 1939, 37, 41. So now you got a cinder block unit. Now, if you've never lived in one of these units,
I have.
it's hotter in that house at 9 o'clock at night than it is in the day because it's baking. You're baking inside those units during the summertime because it's cinder block. So it retains that heat. So the sad part is by the time it starts to cool off again, the sun is coming back up the next day. And so the problem we got, to your point, is you're right. And so it's not insulated well, and that unit is just constantly turning, trying to cool it off.
In evaluation, lenders all day long want us to tell them when we use an in unit versus an interior unit,
yes, sir,
is there an extraction and value difference? And obviously, consumption can vary. It can vary if you got a firewall all the way up to the rafters, or if it's in unit and they're not in.
That's right. That's right.
So have we looked at some type of a hardship adjustment that somebody is living in a unit that is not fenestration wise, maybe as energy efficient as the next one?
Commissioner, I would say this is that is one of the niceties of HUD takes that out of our hands, and they're engineering firms that are only eligible to take North Carolina, Eastern North Carolina. They take all of those things into consideration when they make these determinations. Now, what we could do is further ask some of those questions that you're asking is, hey, were these things considered in your evaluation? And trust me, I'll be more than happy, because if we can assist in any way and you can bring some additional information as you just did.
I mean, if it was 400, I would say this is a person that's
right.
You know, but when it's that much, something's
and to keep in mind, it's not everyone. So these are only, we may have paying what? You may have how many that has excess utilities on average out of 100 units?
The other thing. 75, because sometimes when we do the statements, it's skip, then 1, 2, like that. So it's not everybody gets one.
Right.
Even we would have empirical data about the city, wouldn't it, as to the historical billing of that one? I mean, if that one is historically, for whatever reason, is.
You mean like Craven?
I'm saying we're individually billing, but the city is wholesale doing the billing.
Yeah.
We would have the empirical data to know if that particular unit is for some reason got something going on.
Right. And the other thing that I think would, to your point, and let's just use hypothetically, because Craven is a like type development, if those were individually metered by the company that has them now, and if we could get information on what those tenants with Duke is being charged on an average, we can be able to kind of see, is that in line with what our tenants through a master meter system, as you say, because now they did do some other improvements when they did that, but that's one of the things we're confronted with.
I have a question. These kilowatts, are they new? Did you have it revised?
So this one was done in 2022.
Oh, okay.
So
I didn't know if we had update, like how often do
we can't go over 2 years.
Okay.
So we can do it annually if you see a huge adjustment, like if the Public Service Commission did a huge rate hike or something like that, then you can go back in. But the most time frame we can go is no more than 2 years before we get it reevaluated. So this last one was 2022.
Okay, and I do want to say again, we have to understand not only is it a cinder block building, but everybody's got the same unit. I don't care if you're a 1-bedroom a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom. Everybody has the same size unit. So if you're a 1-bedroom, you obviously probably wouldn't use all of your kilowatts, or wouldn't use the AC or the heat as much as a 3-bedroom because your space is not as large. So we have to keep that in mind as well. And then I don't know how old these units are.
37.
Yes,
I mean, not the building itself.
Oh, yeah.
Air conditioning.
AC, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And to Commissioner's Outlaw's point, I mean, let's just be candid. We don't know how they've been maintained.
Correct.
Well, so
So
there are a lot of different factors that we're trying to.
What I don't understand about your whole deal there is if they used about 800 kilowatt hours more at 10 cents, then that means that that average bill is $26, and that's not right. I mean, they're using a lot more power than that. I mean, they're using $80 or $180. They're not using $26, which would be what that's saying at 10 cents a kilowatt hour.
Right.
Well, this is a good start to even get this identified so we can, because we didn't have this and this is a lot of wisdom to what we were looking for. But now with the questions that are being asked and whatnot, then we can go from there and address these. But we needed a starting point, and it's a great starting point. We got some understanding, and thank you for walking it out, and thank you, Commissioner Bingham, for not letting go of that bone.
I chewed a little bit. I'm sorry.
But really, this is a great starting point, and thank you for the information. Okay. We got a comment here, question.
Is it a technical limitation that allows, that makes us, it takes us 5 or 6 week lag before we can get this data at all? I mean, is it a technical limitation? Like what exactly is? I mean,
are you saying that from the billing end date at the 25th, not receiving?
Well, you see an energy spike. I mean, for instance, 2 weekends ago, I went to have a house that I'm not in that often. I went to it. I had to, turn the heat up, the auxiliary heat pop up. Like 2 days later, and now I get a text that says, "Oh, you got a heat. Your heat's going too high, right? So you can identify, or your energy draw is too high. It's going to cost you money, so that I know right away, and I can know if it's because I know I've used it or not." But here they have no way of knowing until they get the bill, right? Right. We have a technical limitation where they can't do it because my power, Tideland or whatever, they like gave me a text. It's like, "Oh, your heat, you're drawing an extra draw. There's something going on in your place."
No. You're absolutely right. And Jim, where we would come in when these units are demolished and we rebuild, it'll be better. It'll be a lot better, and it'll be individual meter through the utility company. Yeah. Okay, and good. So we won't have this issue anymore. You're absolutely correct.
Because that'd be hard. I mean, I ran up a lot of extra energy bill, and I can afford it, but these folks, that $80, that could be a big deal.
Yeah, and it's antiquated. The system is antiquated, and that's why we wanted. But like I say, for today's purposes, we wanted to there are a lot of other technical questions that need to be addressed, but we wanted to be able to make sure you all understood when the tenants call how the calculation is done. Okay.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. I really
very
appreciate
useful.
it.
All right.
Appreciate that.
Ryan, with that being said, the next thing you all that I wanted to do, as you all know, Amelia Varner, who was the fee accountant, turned in her resignation as the fee accountant back in March. And so let me, for the good of the new board members and other board members, if you would, let me take just a minute to explain the difference between an auditor and a fee accountant, okay? So as you all know, the auditor does an annual audit based on the HUD requirements on an annual basis, and then provides a detailed report. A fee accountant is assisting us monthly with our reporting, our accounting procedures, our accounting practices, how we operate the agency to help us with our monthly financial submissions, monthly financial reports. So they're really, while we have an internal person, having a fee accountant is really having an expert CPA firm on staff for you without the added cost of having that high level person here every day. So they bring the HUD expertise from A to Z to be able to facilitate that. We submitted, as you all know, we submitted an RFP out for fee accounting services when Amelia made that decision. Julianne is new, and as I told Julianne, where we were a month ago and where we are now, we got a long way to go. But I will tell you, her effort is been 100%, and so she's doing all the things that I've asked of her, and she's trying her best to learn this as quickly as she can. But the reality of it is, there's a whole lot that she doesn't know, and she's comfortable admitting that there's a whole lot that she doesn't know. Where a firm like BDO, so we submitted RFPs for a fee accounting firm. BDO is one of the largest and best in the country. I reached out to them as well as others to submit proposals to the agency, and they agreed to do that. And Brian is with BDO. I'll let him explain a little bit about who BDO is, and I hope their excitement to work with us here at New Bern Housing Authority.
Yes, definitely excited to work with y'all. We have several clients all over the country. So BDO is just a very large accounting firm. And the practice that I manage is outsourced accounting and consulting and training for housing authorities and the related affordable housing entities. As I mentioned, we do a lot of training. We train housing authority staff. We train at the national level for the national associations, at the state level for the state associations. In addition, we train HUD staff, the financial analysts at HUD, on the HUD regulatory compliance items, the GAAP, the GASB as well. I've been running this practice, and the folks in my practice, that's all we do is this type of work strictly for housing authorities. I've been doing this for close to 30 years now. I did audits, don't do audits anymore. We prefer to do the accounting, consulting, and training is what we enjoy more. So we do have the audit experience. We know what to expect when you have an audit. We will get you prepped, ready for that audit. So when the auditors come in, they will audit your financial statements, audit some compliance aspects of your federal programs, and render an opinion. That's your audit report. So, as Reggie mentioned, we are assisting monthly or as needed on other topics, implementation of new GASB standards, implementation of HUD regulations. We also are there as needed to be that HUD liaison between the Housing Authority and HUD. So I said a lot. I'm just going to pause to see if anybody has any questions.
Explain outsource accounting. Make sure I understand what you're doing there.
Sure, no problem. So outsourced accounting is just a fancy name for us assisting the accounting department with bank reconciliations, general ledger analysis, making sure transactions are recorded appropriately in the general ledger. So on a monthly basis, you get timely and accurate reports, financial reports. And when the auditor comes in, they review that financial information to make sure the activity was recorded correctly. So we are an extension of your finance department, helping out with the reconciliations and the accounting. Did I answer your question okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And we already have that in place with Amelia, and you've had that in place with previous fee accountants. The nicety is Amelia is a one-person shop. BDO, Brian, how many associates within your firm?
Just in the entire BDO firm?
Well, collectively, and then more granular to your division.
Okay. So BDO is the 5th largest accounting firm in the world. I think we're 6 or 7 in the country. It depends how they measure revenues and whatever is issuing it. But in our practice, we have just over 30 people who specialize in this type of accounting work, and this is all the work that we do.
Does what you do help in any way getting ready for an audit? And could possibly an audit be cheaper if the auditor knew that we were using your consulting firm?
So I will help answer that, Commissioner. The answer to it is we can't determine what their proposed charge is, but to your point, if they were doing something on an hourly basis, having BDO's expertise is going to help us to alleviate a lot of the issues that we've had or concerns that you all as board members may have, because as we enter into the funding with FEMA and development and all of those kinds of things, we got to have a firm that's robust enough to be able to have the background and expertise to be able to help us as we facilitate all of these different federal funding programs. And that is why a firm like BDO is well suited to help us as this agency. So while you may look at New Bern as being little, you're a little agency that's doing big things and it's going to do even bigger things. And that's why a firm like BDO is what we need to help us make sure. And on top of that, as he said, the policies and procedures that is needed within this agency. The first thing that I did when I took over is I had Julianne go online. Even before going out for RFP, I had Julianne go online because they have all of the online training that she needs to be a better in-house accountant and not having that background. You want to speak to some of the training?
I was just going to say that he taught my training 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Okay, so I'm just sharing with you, it's that level of expertise that we're trying to bring to the agency, and having BDO and their team will really help take us to the next level and to help us create better policies and procedures and accounting procedures, which will ultimately, to your question, ultimately, when we get to audits, will make us a lot better for them to review, and long-term will be a lot easier and cheaper, we think, to submit a bill or submit a RFP to us to do audit services, because the work that they're going to do up front is going to make it a heck of a lot easier, which was part of the difficulty this last year, because if you don't have that in-house and you don't have that capacity, it makes it harder for the auditors to give you your audits in a timely manner.
Okay. Do you need a motion? Or
we do.
Okay.
Question.
How long is his contract for? Or is it as needed, or is it on a yearly basis?
So that really ultimately is up to you all. Brian, do you remember what your proposal?
Yeah, what are they are?
Yeah, I think the terms are basically it's a 1-year deal with options.
Okay.
But each party has a right to cancel within 30 days.
So do you know the full scope of what we're?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Are you going to give that information before we make a motion? So the motion could include what the contract is and at what rate?
Yeah, so we'll provide you all, did we put that in their packet, the BDO information?
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
The resolution.
Oh, okay. Okay, let me see. I thought we had put it in your board. So the resolution is resolution number 11-1502, fee accounting services. Duly noticed regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Housing Authority of the City of New Bern took place on November 20th, 2023 at the Authority Administrative Offices. Present either in person or via the telephone was a quorum of the Board of Commissioners. The board, after consideration and discussion of the matters herein, hereby takes the following actions to adopt the following resolutions on behalf of the authority. Whereas the authority has the accounting department, which it desires the services of a fee accounting, and whereas BDO PHA Finance possesses the expertise and experience necessary to provide the desired fee accounting services, and whereas the authority desires to retain BDO PHA Finance to provide fee accounting services for a period of 2 years, with a option to extend for up to 3 additional 1-year periods for an amount not to exceed $50,000 per year for in-office services for the initial term and on such further terms as outlined in the agreement. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Reginald Barner, interim executive director of the authority, is hereby authorized to enter into and execute the fee accounting services agreement subject to final review by legal counsel.
Thank you. Yes. Okay.
Cost benefit analysis, what have we been doing?
Yeah, I was gonna ask what.
Didn't mean to steal your thunder.
No. We have generally spent in and around that same amount or a little excess of that amount, to be very candid with you. It's been in excess of that amount, and it's been with groups that are smaller from that perspective. Now, however, I will be asking the board to provide an hourly contract services at another time for Amelia, because we want to make a smooth transition and we want to be able to get Brian and his team. We have, if you all approve, we've already scheduled a conference call tomorrow morning with Brian and his team to go ahead and jumpstart and get things moving forward. But we also want at least a 6-month time period with Amelia on an as-needed on-call basis only, for her to be able to help to make sure we got a smooth transition. Because what we don't want to do is lose some of the continuity that we have, but this is still in line and is cheaper than what the agency has been paying previous.
So what else between this and staff, or like 5 years ago, we were using the accountant out of Richmond.
Yes.
Right.
And so this is totally.
It's the same concept. It's just, we got a bigger firm. So God bless his soul, but if somebody died tomorrow, the whole world doesn't come crumbling down on us as you had before, or like Amelia is a one-person shop. So that is why we're moving in this direction.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I just want to make sure I understand something. Okay, so this contract, now we're saying it's a 2-year contract with an option to extend 3 additional 1 years. But you want this effective immediately, so it would be effective as of today, tomorrow.
Correct.
And so then that 2-year clock would go, but Amelia would stay on just as needed, or is she in a contract?
She would be a contract as needed. So it would just be an agreement with her as needed on an hourly basis. So if we need her, we call her, because keep in mind, one of the things that I'm trying to do for you all, and we want to do exceptionally well, I want to close out the year as best we can this year. So being able to bring Brian and his team on board immediately, along with having Amelia on board, we can get to the end of the year and we can hit the ground running for a new fiscal year beginning in January. So that's the good thing. We're a December year end, so that way we can bring their expertise on with Amelia, have a clean, get things straight towards the end of the year, and then they're familiar with helping to close out the year, and we start a new year off right. So that's my goal, and that's why I'm asking for your approval.
I mean, to me, this is a no-brainer. We've got a cap of 50. Executive director is going to, or the interim executive director is going to manage this. You're not going to, if the money blows up, we'll see it. So he's not going to do that. He's not going to do that. Yeah. But we got to, the transitioning to this is exactly what we do.
Yeah. What's that resolution number again?
11-1502.
Okay.
It should be 11-23. Oh, 1.
Okay. 11-2301. Okay.
Month, year, and then the number.
Okay.
Well, I certainly hope between you and them that we can take that money out of the mattress and leverage it a little better than we've been doing.
Yes, sir.
That's the intent. Are you ready to make a motion? Can I just have just a second to make sure because I'm about to stick around. So I'd like to make a motion that we adopt resolution number 11-2301, appointing BoC as our fee accountants via contract to start immediately. For an amount not to exceed $50,000 per year for a period of 2 years, with an option to extend for up to 3 additional 1-year periods.
I second.
All in favor of approving resolution 11230 for BDO PHA fee accounting service agreement, all signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Okay. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, guys. Look forward to it. Work
Look
with
forward to
everybody.
working with you.
Okay, talk to you in the morning.
Have a good one. Bye.
Okay, you too.
Thanks for making that happen, man. That's
Yes, sir.
that's a power move that needed really to take place. And sometimes when you're in transition like we are, you don't have visibility of certain things because you're dealing with so many different things and whatnot. So appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Getting all over that.
Yes, sir. The other thing under my report that I want to share with the board, I've had a discussion with the HUD field office. When they did the REACT inspection previous, the agency, because of the conditions, naturally, as you all know, of Trent Court, good.
Remind us what REACT means.
Oh, it's the real estate assessment center for HUD, and so that really is the division that controls the really the operational side and the quality control of public housing for the HUD program. So they do an annual inspection, and there's certain criteria. So not only is it physical inspection, but it's also other criteria within the agency that is monitored. The agency in that last inspection and review scored a 66 out of 100.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which puts the agency in what they call is potential trouble status. So financially, we're strong, but operationally, we're putting some things in place, reporting, BDO type of accounting, a lot of those type of things that we're going to be putting in place to help us move beyond kind of where we are. So we can't do anything about the physical side of it, but everything else we can do something about, and that's really what we're going to be focused on. So I wasn't sure if you all were aware of that previous score and the status of that.
No, I don't call it.
I don't. I think we were.
Okay.
She did say that.
We were in troubled status.
She did not, I don't remember her saying.
Those wasn't the words.
Right.
gave that number.
Yeah.
But we did, yes. And I
So going into January,
what it meant, and I think it was kind of smoothed over as, oh, this is normal.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't take it as that. I took
Okay.
it as it was that because of the condition of the buildings. And
so the building is one aspect, and then other reporting is also another aspect of it. But again, to say to you all, we're going into January, we're going into a new fiscal year. So with a lot of the things that we're doing, I just wanted to make you all aware of it. We will be working with the HUD office to be able to begin to move to correct those items. I just wanted to make the board aware of it, because what I don't like to do is, we'll talk later on some other issues, is I don't want y'all to come back 8 months from now and say, Reggie never told us that that's kind of where we are. So I want all of us to be on ground zero and on sound footing as we go forward and working together.
Just a question on this. So
Yes, sir, Jim.
how often is the REACT assessment done?
So it's generally done on an annual basis. Yeah.
And what did we score last year on it?
I can get that information because I'm at a disadvantage as well.
Yeah, I know you're new.
But no.
But I'm just sort of like saying, is this something that's sort of been out there, and that's sort of what I'm hearing, I think?
Yeah.
Or it's somehow gone down for some reason.
Yeah, no. It's going to continue to go down, in particular because of the units, because the HUD's review is, if you walk on a sidewalk and you know where the crease is in the sidewalk, if it's elevated a little bit, they call that a trip hazard.
Yep.
And so for an agency that's got 100 units, one health and safety trip hazard can kill your whole score.
Yeah.
And those kinds of things. So it's those kinds of things that we're focused on. But I can provide the historical information for you as well. I wanted to make you aware of that. FEMA has we've had great conversations with FEMA. Commissioner Bingle was on the call with us last Thursday. Let her share that, but we're making great progress with FEMA. The $90,000 that when you all moved from what was the name of the office building when y'all came over here?
301 Shopfront Street.
Yeah.
So when you moved from 301 to over here, at that time, FEMA decided not to continue to fund you emergency funding for operations. As going back and forth with them over the last couple of weeks, we've had robust conversations with the field office, the Atlanta office, and they've come back now and agreed that they recognize that the Housing Authority is an essential organization, not just an auxiliary organization. So they've agreed to give that $90,000 from the time you moved up until September of 2022. Once they fund that, then we're going to be submitting another request to start September of 22. Coming forward, we feel like that's going to be good because as Sabrina can tell you from the conversations last week, they also now are moving towards helping us to get the funding approval for the Charles Taylor building, to get those fundings set aside to remodel that building to create the administrative office. Because here's the key: if they don't give us the money for the Charles Taylor building, because they've deemed us essential, whether we stay here or anywhere else, they got to continue to give you money to pay rent to somebody else. And they don't want to keep giving you money to pay rent to somebody else when they can go ahead and just give us the money to redo the office building. And then we have a completely remodeled office building that we have no debt on. And then FEMA's no longer giving us office.
They're figuring on getting a reimbursement back from the office we lost.
Correct. So what?
Lost, right?
Yes, that's exactly
Correct.
right. That's exactly right.
Plus the rent from here.
Yeah. So first part is they're going to give us the rent. They're going to reimburse us for the rent that they've denied. Then they'll continue to give us rent money until we can get back into the Charles Taylor building.
What is the figure on Charles Taylor now? Because I remember
it's a couple of million. It's a couple of $1 million
I can't imagine that.
it was about 700.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, this
No,
was several years ago. The
Yeah.
number was, I think, 8 when Bill Frederick was.
Yeah, we'll give you the up, but that includes architectural, engineering.
Well, I mean, it's okay to me if it's 5 as long as we're getting reimbursed.
Yeah, they're covering everything. They're going to cover everything for the Charles Taylor building.
Cool.
Right. And then the other thing that they've agreed to do, and I got this word as of Friday, they have now sent our request over. You're right. They've sent our request over. That's the $2 million plus number. They've sent our request over to the CRC within the FEMA Emergency Management Division to give us the architectural and engineering fees to go ahead and start on the design work for the replacement of the residential buildings that were demolished. So
I could tell just the tone of their voices was night and day from July. July was the last time I was on a call, and these people were very upbeat. They're very upbeat with Reggie, and just say, okay, now that we have the approval from HPC and all that, everything just seemed to be very positive. And that was probably the most positive conversation I heard since this all started.
So they've been great to work with over the last 30 days. And I'm pleased with the progress that we're making. And I think you all will continue to be pleased with the direction things are going.
But I do want to say this because it even held me back. So it's going to be mid-2024 before we can really get to a step, and could be another year beyond that for all the buildings to come down and whatever. So it's not just, okay, you're done.
That's progress.
It's going to be another 6-8 months.
It's progress.
Yeah. No doubt about it. Just getting the money will be progress.
Right. And that is why, so I will say to this board, because that's the next step that I do want you all to help work with me on, is working with the city on the CNI implementation for next year.
You said you needed assistance?
Well, I want the board's support. Begin to have follow-up conversation with the city. We've had some conversation, but we're going to be moving towards that for next year, because that CNI's $50 million potential to benefit the community and benefit the targeted area where Trent Court is. So coupling that collaboration with the city and us applying for CNI money, implementation money, with the FEMA money and all of those things, I think can work hand in hand. We want to start beginning of the new year. So that way, by the time the application is due next fall, we have laid the groundwork as a community and working together to be able to do that. So I want to put that out there for you all today. So that way we can,
Let's get on.
we can be able to do it. Okay.
We are ready. We've been ready.
Make it happen.
We are the champions.
Okay. So we'll continue to do that. And then lastly, which segues into Julianne with BDO, as y'all can tell. And again, Commissioner Bingle and I've had a lot of FaceTime.
I'm sure.
Over the last 30 days, but it's been good FaceTime. And I think,
you.
no, it's been good FaceTime. No, she's been good. And so hear me, you all, and I want to say that is the points that she's brought up and the things that we're working on is helping us to identify collectively. There's some things we can do differently, and we're changing some of those policies. As I've said to her, we can't change them overnight. So I'm not committing that we can do that, but with bringing on a BDO, Julianne having a very positive attitude, we're making some progress, and I just want to share that with you all. So with that being said, I'm completed with my report, Mr. Chairman, and we'll go to the finance.
So, Mr. Chair, I'd like for us to go back and take care of the minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I had circled that. I'm like, okay, all right. It was something with it. Go ahead.
I'd recommend that you start with the September 12th minutes. Those were the minutes that you tabled that I think asked us to look at and make sure it's be addressed to the discrepancy.
Yes, and can you explain? Okay,
and so you should have gotten a copy of those minutes just to remind everyone. This was the minutes related to the FEMA consultant. In the discussion, it mentioned $30,000 fee per year
for a 2-year contract.
For a 2-year, 1-year extension, and the resolution said something different. We went back and looked at that. We determined that the 30,000 2-year, 1-year extension is the accurate number, and that our recommendation is that you just amend the minutes to reflect that the resolution is the 30,000 2 years with a 1-year extension, and that'll take care of it.
Okay, that's fine. So if you'd like to, since I was the one who complained about it, I make a motion that we adopt the minutes of Tuesday, September 12th with the following corrections. That as part of resolution number 9.21.01, it should read, whereas the authority desires to retain the Grant Works Incorporated to provide FEMA consulting services for a period of 2 years with an option to extend for 1 year for an amount not to exceed $30,000.
Correct.
Now, did you want to say additional 1-year periods, or you said 2 years?
No, I said a 2-year contract with an option to extend for 1 year, because that's what the motion is.
And the resolution should be 9/23/01.
Did I say that?
I'm not.
Yeah.
I think you said 20.
Okay, sorry, 9.23.01.
If this thing went 3 years, it'd be $90,000. Is that right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Everybody agree on that?
Well, we had voted on it. I'm just amending the minutes. We voted against it anyway.
Yeah, but I don't think we were sure about the 49 and the 30 days.
That's right.
Yeah, so we corrected it.
That's
it's
right.
The 30. And just for your record, Valerie does not feel at all that it's gonna reach 30,000 a year. And she doesn't feel if things continue to go the way it's going with FEMA, that it's going to take her 3 years to help us do that. This just is a safety net.
And if the consultant does what they're supposed to do, most or all of that will be reimbursed by FEMA.
Correct.
So I think you're good to go.
Yes.
That's a win-win.
So I made a motion. Does anybody second? Oh, you did. Okay.
All in favor of accepting the revised resolution 9.23.01. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I'll abstain just because I wasn't here.
Fair enough.
And that was the September 12th.
Yes, sir. Now you go to your regular meeting, then.
Did we not have another set of minutes?
Yeah,
The regular,
you had there.
the regular meeting.
There's October
Right there.
15th.
Yeah, just one other set. This was the other set that we.
Yeah, I mean, but
Your packet.
I had I don't know.
The other two minutes, set of minutes from September were approved at last month's meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had 3 meetings in September.
Okay, so we approved this, the October 16th ones, yeah. I got you.
On those minutes, that was a challenging call that we were on, but I know me and Miss Commissioner Powell, we were on. I see she is marked as absent on this.
It needs to be corrected.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Zeb put it on the phone remote, which
Yeah.
was not the best connection.
You know that, I was gonna ask about that. I thought you were on.
She was on, yeah. So.
No, Zoom, couldn't get Zoom working
Well,
out.
but I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
We'll have it, we'll know.
I'll update.
Attended
Oh,
remote.
yeah.
Yeah, she attended remotely like I did. Oh, what else?
So is that your motion? To adopt the minutes with that correction?
What, are we on the,
Well, 16th. Oh, we already did the.
you're on the 16th?
Yes.
Well, it was only needed to be the revision of the
That one has
the
a,
resolution.
Well, there was one typo I was gonna say on page 3 on the October 16th. I think that the board continue education, not continuing. Commissioner Bingham requested board continuing education on the calculation of utility bills. I think that probably should be continued. Commissioner Bingham.
I think that continuing is it's
request the board
future.
continue education.
Continuing education.
Yeah, we get, maybe it should have said that I requested the board receive continuing education. Because I wanted. For that.
Okay. Right.
We'll add and receive if that makes it more clear. But
I'll stand corrected
right
then.
here in this last.
Yeah, yeah, it's board. Yeah, continuing. Yeah, it's ongoing education. That's
For board.
yeah.
I'll second her motion.
All in favor of accepting the minutes with the correction of the attendee? Yeah, that was on the correction. All in favor of approving the minutes as with the correction? All signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Approved. Okay, sir. We were going to Julianne.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Wells.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Bear with me with my voice here. I'm just getting it back. We'll start with the consolidated income statement. Total operating revenue for Trent Court is $926,146.77. For the BoC grant, $62,209.30. For New Bern Towers, $890,150.83. Okay. Total operating expenses for transport, $978,582.41. For CHI business activity, $43,635.35. For the Ross grant, $62,100.10. For New Bern Tower, $694,691.76. At the bottom, for the total net income for Trent Court, $607,314.64. For CHI business activity, negative $43,635.35. For the Ross grant, $29.20. And for New Bern Tower, $195,459.07.
And just to highlight, because we discussed it a little bit previously, we're catching up on if we go back to Trent Court revenues from HUD PHA grants, one of the issues, Commissioner Bingham, before was we had not caught up with our subsidy amounts, which is one of the questions and concerns you all previously had. And so one of the things we're doing is we're doing a more timely requisition, if you will, of the HUD subsidy, opposed to just waiting to the end of the year. We're just going to be more routine to do those either monthly or on a quarterly basis at least, but not go 6 or 7 months before we request those funds.
I mentioned that before.
Right. So I just wanted to highlight that she's done a good job with requesting those funds. Okay.
One of the issues that I had, and I'm glad that Mr. Barner in one of our discussions explained it to me, because I was having a really hard time figuring out, and I don't know if you all are aware of this. When you see dwelling rental, it's an accrual number. It's not the actual number that they have received. And that was the problem, because in our reports, we would see what was charged with, let's say, $31,000 was charged. Well, when I tried to back, but only 24,000 was collected. Okay. Right. So I was trying to back in the number, and I said, well, this number says that you got 31,000, but you only got 24. So these are flawed to me in essence, because it's not the true amount of money we have received, because it's on an accrual basis, not a cash basis. Not a cash. You and I in business, we want to know about how much cash we've got, yeah. So that has thrown me off a lot. And what's thrown me off is the amount of money that is owed. You know, when you think about it, I think he told me there's, we're in arrears like $54,000 from Trent Court, people who haven't paid. And that's just this year.
But wasn't that indicated on the reports that we did? Or that we got, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but what we're trying to do is, and we're going to have some further discussion.
Yeah, well, hold on to that thought. Anyway, that's what I've been trying to do and look at the numbers, but it does give you a different sense knowing that that's not a true number. So Trent Court dwelling rentals of 301,671.90 is not what they actually collected. It's what they should have collected.
Kind of what you've been asking for, some understanding of the terminology.
Yes, yes. I'm just, I'm to try to see where our weak spots are so we can correct them and figure out. Yeah. But so, I don't want to overstate our position. And if we weren't trying to figure out how much it costs us to run it for the business, or what our operational expenses are operational, if we're not receiving the money, we're going to pay the bills.
We don't do a cash reconciliation, a cash flow statement. Back it out. Yeah. We just get the accrual.
I thought we did.
Question, I'm sorry.
I mean, well, with normal business accounting, you'd have an income statement, which would be accrual, right? I mean, you'd have accounts payable and receivable, but then you'd have a cash flow statement to back these things out. But there's nothing. Do we have that here?
Well, Mr. Garner and I were looking at it this morning. Like the dwelling rental for Trent Court is $301,000. And then if you look at the balance sheet for tenant accounts receivable, that's what
you would be back. You would back it out of the 301.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yep. Okay.
And I know it's kind of wonky that they're on two separate reports, but.
And then, no, it's
you said
it's normal.
You said it's where? Is that here?
Okay, like this
balance sheet
is a dwelling rental just for October 21st.
So that's actually what we received.
That's what was charged. And then if you look at now this is going to be for the year.
Okay.
11/22 tenant accounts receivable. That's what we're owed. So this first number is what we charged, and that's what we're owed.
And the other thing that we had discussion around, that which was given Sabrina some heartburn, which was fair, is, so as you just said, if we're showing 54,000 in arrears, but the number that we had on Pam's report and the number we have on the income statement also was two different numbers. So again, we're going through everything to be able to identify, So we found it, but here's the funny. So just like anything else, you find one answer and then it turned up something else. So Julianne went back, I raised the question, she found, oh, Mr. Byrne, here it is, $478, which is what was the difference between what was on Pam's report,
Right.
but what was on the income statement. But then once we did that, we also saw, well, there's 5 other credits. Well, why were those credits not taken into account? So once we opened and found one answer, then it was a can of worms. And so it's not a bad issue, but it just opened up another question of why is the software system not catching those other credits? It caught that one credit, but the software system didn't catch the other credits. Mm-hmm. So now we're going back and having to look at the software system to see, is the software system has some errors within it because it didn't pick up some of the other credits that it did here. And that was the 478 to the penny difference. But then we also saw other credits. So we're going back to review it. So that's what I'm sharing with you is we're doing what you all are asking, but then once we do that, we're finding other little niches of issues that we're having to address. But we're making progress.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
The next few pages, it'll be, first it'll be straightforward and it will show a comparative income statement for the month and year to date.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And then the following page will show the budget performance for the year. So if y'all have any questions on those, we can for each property.
And if you have some after tonight, for the sake of time, please give us a call, come schedule a time, sit down with us. We're happy to do that. But we've made some modifications and we even made it, related to some of the structure that Commissioner Bingle recommended. I think it will help us long term.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And just knowing our budget so we can but we should be making budget line item transfers because money's not in one line item or the other. We can figure out where we need, where we're not figuring correctly our budget.
What explains the significant variance in the HUD PHA grant revenues?
Can you tell me which page you're on, please?
Oh, on Trentport, first page of income statement where we got we've got 100,000 this year, 103,000 this year to date. 24,000 last year, period. But now overall, maybe these things all come in at the end of the year.
No,
that's just for the month. No, that's just for the month. That's for the month, not to date. This is for the day.
But Jim,
we're under actually for the year to date versus last year, if I'm right, by some.
We're not. So here's the problem, and that's what we're trying to share with you. If we don't consistently draw every month, then you can't do a year to month comparison, because as an example, if it's 59,000 I can draw every month and I don't draw that 59,000 because I can wait 3 months, then you're going to end up seeing 1 month where I draw 170,000. And then so when we come back and do a comparative from last year to this year, it's going to be completely skewed, because unless I do the same thing that I did exactly the same way last year that I do this year, you can't do a comparison. So that is why we're trying to get the consistency of saying, if we can draw 59 every month, we draw 59 every month. So next year, when you look at, if HUD gave us 60,000, then you can truly see there's a $1,000 difference in subsidy from last year, the same month, for this year. The money is there. It's just, we can pick and choose when we draw it down.
No, that makes sense.
That's the problem.
Yep.
Yep.
Going to the grant listings page, these are as of 10/31/23. The same, I always have this fund statement here and right now. For 2018, we had $4,900. 2019, $280,260 in the next page. For 2020, $613,054. For 2021, $47,652. 2022, $796,510. 2023, $798,663. That's a total remaining of $2,538,451.85.
So Jim, going back to your question earlier with the bank, is because we're a small PHA, we're below 250 units, the majority of the capital fund can be utilized for operating expenses. So when we draw that money down, we really draw that into the operating budget. So part of what we're going to be doing to give y'all that analysis of what funds we need truly to operate every month, we get to take into account this $2.5 million that's sitting on the books. So now it's a timing of when you draw that down, but the majority of this 2.5 million can be utilized in operation. So we have to use some in dwelling structures to make capital improvement repairs, but a lot of it gets drawn down into management and operations. And so we're going to be making that assessment with BDO as well.
But why would we want to use it for operation?
Because because what HUD does is they changed their rules several years back to where the majority, they don't give you enough. So as an example, HUD will say for operating subsidy for a public housing agency, let's just say for New Bern is $900,000. But HUD will come back and only give you 80% of that in your operating subsidy. So as a public housing agency, we can only charge a tenant 30% of their gross adjusted income.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we charge the tenant their portion, and HUD really should be giving us $900,000. HUD is only going to give us $700,000.
Mm.
So then they come back and say, take that $200,000 out of the capital funds, because as an operating budget, they don't give you 100% anymore. So then they give you capital funds, and there's a line item within the capital funds for management and operations. So what they basically say is move that to that line item and draw that funds down. Then you make up 100% of your operating budget. But HUD doesn't give us, the government no longer gives you 100% of operating subsidy. And that's why most housing authorities and HUD is pushing for you to demolish and go to this whole RAD system, which I'll teach you about at another time. But that's the reason why the government wants to get out of the public housing business, because we have from 1939, 80 years of deferred maintenance on these public housing. And there's not enough money within the federal coffers to fix all of those units to do the things you need to do. So that's why they want you to demolish it. And that's why they're also not giving you full funding. So it's
make it work.
Yeah, exactly. That's
it work.
Yeah. So that's why you use.
I think in New Bern, they want you to do it through 9% tax credits. New Bern's unique because we have hurricane. We're getting all that reimbursement, but in the business model of anywhere but New Bern, they want you to do it with 9% tax.
9 or 4% or other fund. That's correct. Yeah.
Which will not work here for what we're doing.
Well, it's not what we want to do, because in the
reimbursement.
That's right. Because of the highest and best use of the land that we have the flexibility. To your point, they're always going to say mayor. So excuse me if I say that.
What is a percentage of that capital fund program you can allocate to operating expense? 20% or what?
Yeah,
what amount is it?
So really, for small agencies, you
under 250.
Yes, housing authorities under 250. For small agencies, you can allocate all of it to operations.
I just don't want an audit to come back and we over.
Yeah, so you could do it, but what we try not to do is do that and put, again, we try to be. Every agency should be prudent and then look at capital improvements, whether it's stove, refrigerators, roofs, those kinds of things. So we still got to maintain it until we can get to demolish it. So what you find a lot of times is, like in our case, we put new roofs on the buildings because it's needed for people to still live there, knowing that when we get that opportunity, we're going to demolish them. So they got a 30-year roof on a building that we may demolish in 5 years, but we got to do that because we can't leave people living in
So in a
substandard housing.
hypothetical 8 years from now, you know what's coming with Craven Terrace.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
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 That's gonna be 9% tax credit conversion there. So it'll be
We'll deal with them when we deal with them.
just saying.
No,
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Long-term look at it.
Yeah, that's a real.
We're praying Jesus comes home.
So we're literally putting 30-year roofs on the buildings that we're gonna be taking down before too long?
Yes, sir. We have to.
And you can't reuse the shingles.
You have to, because that's just the regulation. Because like, you know, if it was my house, I wouldn't, you know. If you're gonna stay in the house and keep the house, then you can get her husband to come put the Mac Daddy roof on it. But if you're gonna tear the house down, then no way I'd put all that on it.
Right. But the federal government doesn't let us do.
You can't do piecemeal work.
No, sir.
Mm.
Wow. Welcome to this world.
Yeah. Okay.
And for the Ross grants, we have $89,669.75 left. And yes, that is a grant that has been behind, and it will be caught up with our drawdown next.
Okay.
Everything will be up to date.
Thank you. Thank you, Julianne.
Y'all have been shaking and moving.
Yes, appreciate it too.
Y'all been shaking and moving. Yeah.
And the cash flow for modernization, that's $783,169.01. Trent Court General Fund, $2,389,345.85. New Bern Towers General Fund, $1,429,206.37. CD proceeds, $382,229.46. Community Housing Initiative, $321,700.54. And Veterans Housing, $281,934.02, for a total of $5,587,585.25.
So this is, I guess, where I was sort of confused is, because this isn't a real cash flow statement. This is what's in our checking accounts under each account, right?
Yeah. Okay. So it shouldn't be called cash. And that's a lot of the stuff that we're going to be working on and cleaning up.
To get it, so we can see the change, right? Because
correct.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. But the bottom line is just what you said. That's just money in our checking account. And that's why the whole issue of we got money sitting in the checking account that's not earning anything, because what the bank was doing, I mean, and Jeff recognizes it. What the bank was doing is they said, oh, we're gonna credit you $1,000 because you use $1,000 in fees. And we're like, come on, we ain't earning no money on that. So that's why we came up with that meeting that we had.
Oh, interest rates were so daggum low for so long. Yeah.
Final pages of draft of our 2024.
So what we did for the good of the board, we need going into the year, we basically just took 3% from the existing budget for this year, added it to this, and so we can be able to meet the deadline, which we're already behind when I took over. So I'm just sharing with y'all. So we have a draft budget. We took the existing budget, added 3% to it. And because the federal government is operating on a continuing resolution right now, the subsidy amount that we use in this budget, we just mirrored the subsidy amount for 2023, because that's what typically how the federal government does it. They're not increasing or decreasing. You're operating off of what was last year's funding. So we just did a budget based on the subsidy that we received last year. We're presenting this to you all. Mr. Chair asked for approval in order for us to be able to submit, because we're already behind, and I don't want to have HUD breathing down my throat any more than what they are. If we get in January and Congress makes changes, we're going to be changing this budget anyway. So if we get once Congress approves a federal budget, the number is going to change, and we're going to be presenting a new budget back to you all anyway. But for right now, we just based off of the continuing resolution number from last year.
We need to vote to approve.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I gotta submit this. Like I said, y'all, we're way behind. And
So are there any deviations, substitutions on your budget other than the 3% across the board?
it's just 3% across the board, and we kept the subsidy amount is the same.
Income and expenses.
For the most part, we just did 3%. Now, that way, it just allows us to, for the purposes of getting it turned in, it meets that requirement, knowing that we're working off of a continuing resolution. And once we can fine tune it, we're gonna come back and ask you all to approve another budget.
What is CPI right now? I don't even know. I haven't checked it. And what's the index? I don't even. Is it?
Monthly is about 3.33, a little over 3%.
Yeah, I hadn't checked it. So.
That's fine.
So 3% being on.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
And that we adopt the
3%.
well, no, that you adopt the
budget.
24 draft budget.
Draft budget.
Okay.
We got to get something done, right? Go ahead.
Yeah.
We always
Way behind.
Right.
right?
Yeah, absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
Entertaining a motion to adopt the 24 draft budget. Let's get a motion.
I made a motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor of approving the 24 draft budget with 3%, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. Barr, at some point when 3-4 months later, when you were on footing with the new accounting firm, it might be a nice idea for us to have a Zoom workshop.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of our goals.
We're gonna have a bunch of questions.
Oh, yeah, no, that's one of our goals is to bring BDO to do some training, Zoom training.
I wouldn't call it training. We're just gonna have.
Well, work sessions. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Everything else, Ms. Wells?
If y'all don't have any questions.
No, we're good.
Question for Ms. Wells, anything? Thank you, Sheree. All in favor of accepting the finance report as reported, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
You didn't have a motion for that.
Oh, we did.
Motion to adopt the draft budget.
Okay, that was
Okay.
that was separate. Yes, you're right. Motion to accept the finance report as presented.
I make a motion that we accept the finance report as presented.
Second. All in favor of approving the finance report as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank
you. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, even though the ladies have stayed, we do need to have an executive session. If you all, I hate to do this to them because they have stayed, but for the sake of time, unless there's something pertinent within their reports, at this time, we could use those as consent items.
I mean, for Ross.
For Ross Trade Court report,
Yes.
Newberg Towers.
Yes.
If you all are willing to with that, y'all go with that.
Yes, sir.
I hate to do it to the ladies because they've stayed, but we still got some other important topics to discuss. So is that
Yes.
y'all good?
You
Okay.
can dismiss them.
All right. Ladies. Sorry, but y'all can go home.
You may be excused.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you all.
Good job. All right. All right.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks. Thank you.
See you next meeting.
All right.
Do you need a motion?
So now we need the motion going to close.
Before we do that, are we gonna, what have we decided on those reports? Are we
By
gonna?
consensus to allow the written report to stand.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay.
Report from staff.
Okay.
You don't approve of it, so you.
Right, yeah.
Right. I do just want to say on behalf of the discussions that Cynthia and I had, we're going to be getting a lot more involved with the residents. There are a lot of social issues and, job and those kinds of things. And especially with these rents that we're going to talk about in a minute, we're going to get her with the Ross program a lot more engaged with the residents in the community to try to see if we can find some resources to help some of these people. Okay, so I just want to mention that part as well.
Okay.
Do we need a motion to go into?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Jim.
Can he make a motion? Can he get a second to go into closed session?
But can I say why?
Yes, please. I'm waiting.
Consult with the attorney and cover personnel.
Okay.
Pursuing, okay, do we need the statute and all of that? You got the statute?
You don't need it.
Okay. I just found, I already quoted, because we know this, Commissioner Beagle, you know. But
Now everybody gotta put it in the minutes, because somebody will come after you.
Put it in the minutes. But
yeah, no problem.
I mean, what's important are the words you use to go into the closed session.
You guys.